I made this image not too big so it wouldn't be distracting, but I want to have you look at the top right-hand corner of this PowerPoint slide. And let me tell the story for you. I was looking for an old CSL branding image from this time way back before it all became one again, when they renamed us a spiritual community rather than a church, and tested out all of these images and all of this phrasing to really be more contemporary. And the image I was looking for, which is somewhere in one of my drives, and mine are not as organized as my husband's, of the earth inside of an eggshell. And so it's sort of like emerging, right? Hatching out of that eggshell. I also wanted to find a humorous image for the question, who, me? If you look closely, of course, I laughed like crazy because I have a bigger version of this. There's this young guy hatching out of an eggshell. And so I added my title to it. I sent it to my nephew too. And actually for him, I put a pair of glasses on there because he's one of my favorite people to talk to about this stuff. He's 31 and he's wondering what the heck is going on in our world, right? So my inspiration was to talk about this question, who, me, and how asking that question and answering it relates to changing the world into the one that we would love to see out there. It's different from the one we're seeing a lot lately, right? And also, down in the bottom left corner here is love and fear. The principles of love and fear are the other things that we're going to call upon to not only answer the question, but bring about that world that is changed for the better. So that's what we're going to do today. It turns out, and by the way, I want to let you know that many master teachers go down the rabbit hole so we don't have to. So if you listen carefully, this is kind of like a Disney movie that's written for children, but there's this whole other theme for adults that goes through it as well. This may seem oversimplified, but it's highly mystical, and it's true. Our own growth and hatching not only contributes to our own healing and the realization of our own potential, our own growth and healing / hatching contributes to that world that we would love to see more often. Why is that? Because the world is comprised of you and me. We're it. We're all inhabiting this planet together. And the way that we do that depends on how grown up we are or not. Okay? Another sidebar is that we're often known for something called a spiritual bypass, where we look at what's going on out there and we say, oh, ain't it awful? It's all good. Let's go get a bite to eat. Well, we're not doing a spiritual bypass. What I'm asking you to do with me is to own that your growth and healing and mine, growth and hatching is the word I want to keep using, contribute to our getting along better on the planet and experiencing the world together in a better way. And when we dig into love and fear, all of you who are a student of A Course in Miracles know about this. These two things change the way we show up. They change the way we experience life. And we know if we've been here for a minute or longer, they change the life and the world that we co-create. We're not outside of this thing. We're in the middle of it. We all are. So, of course, as we understand our own wholeness, as we understand, like Michael Beckwith says, that healing is revealing, and as we understand the world's wholeness and perfection, and reveal that as well, we hatch, we reveal the potential that's been there all along. Because that's another thing that a metaphysician will argue with you about. We're already perfect. What are we talking about? The world is already perfect. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about it because we're not demonstrating that perfection as often as we might. And we're not demonstrating that perfection as often as we might because we're probably focusing on fear more than we are on love. We're probably not as grown up as we might be when we get out there and interact with other people. We've all had these conversations. We've all looked at social media. We've all either just abstained from saying anything because we don't know what to say, or we've had really deep conversations with one another about some things, just like what's planned after celebration today in Better Together. We're having these conversations. And it may sound trivial, but a conversation changes the world, right? So, we have two things that we can do. And of course, we have lots of things that we can do. But think about these two. One of them is this: ask the question, who, me? What do I mean by that? I'm going to give you an example, but before I do, let me just preface it with this. When we notice something going on out there, there's always a corresponding something going on in here. Now we're going to pause for a moment, take a scenic overlook, and just say this. It's possible to fall into the trap of saying, oh, what bad, wrong thing did I do to create this? And get lost in the mire of guilt and shame and whatever, overwhelmedness and whatever, any other way we can beat ourselves up. There's actually a class about the classes in Centers for Spiritual Living that is specifically about that. Don't fall into that trap of guilting and shaming ourselves and one another for what we did to create this. You know, sometimes Science of Mind ministers will point fingers at one another for even having a cold, you know. And believe me, during COVID, didn't we all argue about, you know, whether to do this or not or that or whatever? So, here's the deal. Ask this question anyway, because we are connected. And if you haven't noticed, trying to control what other people do, trying to control whether or not other people behave according to your set of rules is futile. As they say in Star Trek, the Borg, resistance is futile, right? On the other hand, if I ask myself what in me is equal to this thing going on out there, that's a heavy question, by the way. But if I ask myself honestly, I will discover something in me that I do have control over. I will discover something in me that I do have the power to change. No legislation required. No campaign, no hearings, no nothing. Just me being willing to ask that question. Now, the teenager in me, and maybe you've got one in you too, might say, yeah, but she started it. Yeah, anybody? I don't have children of my own, but I'm familiar with this argument, right? They started it. I coach and counsel and teach people all the time who come to that initial conclusion. The thing is that I also watch people, and have watched myself, go through exhausting machinations trying to get other people to behave. And we don't even realize it. We're thinking, if they would just behave, I'd feel so great. The thing is, they might behave for a minute, and you might feel great for a minute, but that minute will pass, and then what? You're back at the mercy of what other people are doing. The other thing is this. This behavior, this judgment, this thing going on is a cycle. It is a cycle. I'm participating in it. Here I am. Maybe I'm in an argument with somebody. Or let's just go back to the observation that there's something wrong with a person out there. They're participating in it too. Does it really matter, really, who started it? Does it really matter or do any good to figure out who's to blame? Or does it matter more that we interrupt the cycle and make a correction regardless of who started it? I've been fascinated by watching these hearings lately because people from, quote, both sides of the aisle are standing in their integrity. They're saying, I have principles. Well, we have spiritual principles. I took an oath. Well, I'll tell you what, practitioners and ministers took an oath too. I can't go against my integrity. We all have integrity. And what's happening is there are people who are standing on those things regardless of all of the judgment and opinion and mayhem going on out here, and they're all ending up in one place. That's what happens when we willingly adhere to spiritual principle no matter what's going on out there. So instead of getting caught up in who started it, if I can say, I can break that cycle right now, depending on what I do next. How many times do we do that? More than once, because it takes more than one time to create a new pattern, to start a new cycle, to affect change. So we do it every time. I'll give you an example. If I say that I can think of a person who is so judgmental, I think you know the answer already. I can either just get caught up with that and say, well, I'm going to avoid that person and every opportunity to relate with, collaborate with, co-create with, know, appreciate, love, whatever, that person. Or I can ask myself, what in me is equal to that judgment? And if I've never asked that question before, I might be surprised. I did this, by the way, because I got called out. You guys, some of you heard me. I worked at Laurie's Catering years ago. And there was a pastry chef who had a beef with me, and she just watched me and finally blew up and called me names, and I ran home crying. And my sister said, well, get with your feelings first, and then ask yourself, I've got good sisters, is there anything true about what she said? And there was. I was living in my own little bubble, not aware enough of how I was supposed to be thinking about and interacting with the others on my team. That was a long time ago. But first thing I did was cry like crazy. Oh, how could they call me names? And my sister said, get in touch with your feelings and then ask yourself, is this true? So what happens is when I do that willingly, I get to discover that point of power in me where I can grow and I can hatch out of that and contribute something different to the cycle that is not only this relationship, but really every other one going on. Because separation, it's not real and it's not possible. We really are all in this together. So there are two things here. There's this question of who me, and when we ask it, it will reveal a point of power, an opportunity for growth, and if we accept it, hatching. And then there's another one, which is these two concepts of love and fear. So the first one is acknowledging what we are putting into circulation. Like John's going to be talking in the class about the law of circulation. That's one of many that we teach here. So how about this love and fear thing? I was thinking about this again recently. Excuse me, because I went to the doctor. I had been working a couple of different jobs, and they were both really intense. I had unknowingly taken on more than one person's share of responsibility in life, and it was causing a great deal of stress. And it started to accumulate in different places in my body, and it finally ended up right between my ears. And I had this amazing biofeedback mechanism that every time I got too excited about one more thing, my head would feel like my brain didn't fit inside my cranium. So I went and saw the doctor about it. And of course, he's like, check me, you're fine. I can see a rheumatologist in a year, by the way. I'm always fine by the time they're available. But what happened was I realized, I need to practice some mindfulness here. And what I discovered was, am I making my coffee lovingly or am I rushing? Because spirit doesn't hurry. Am I planning my day lovingly or am I cramming more into it than is loving? Am I completing this task in gentleness and maybe even joy? Or am I doing it quickly in such a way that the outcome wouldn't be so great? Maybe I'll break something, I might cut my finger, what have you. And every time I chose love, my head felt fine. And when I didn't choose love, when I went back into the habit of you should be doing 6 different things at a time, all of them perfectly, all of them alone, all of them yesterday, my head hurt. So I practiced what we learn here. I practiced what I learned as a student of the Course in Miracles, as a student of mindfulness, as a student of the science of mind. And I feel great. I feel great today. I remember I was here last week and I said to Cliff, thank you. I needed to change my story. And what I've watched is like, oh, this stuff works. So when I say to choose love over fear, the second question then is simply this. In any moment, no matter what you're doing, if you're just sitting still thinking, am I in love or am I in fear? One pathway will lead you to anxiety and depression if you haven't already tried that out. Another will lead you to a joyous chance meeting. I've had a few of them. We've had a couple of really fun ones popping into Earth Fair when we're in town. It's not the same as the Earth Fair down in Greenville. I like this one better. When we are in love, the coolest things happen. And when we're in fear, none of the cool things happen, right? Those of you who remember Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, he talks about having a pain body. And a pain body is the accumulation of every fearful experience we've ever had, and obviously we haven't completed it. We haven't done our grieving, our processing, our converting it into something good, whatever that is. And he says, if you're in your pain body, do not get in the car and go for a drive because you're going to tear around the corner and you're going to collide with someone else who's also driving in their car while in their pain body. We also are advised not to even open our mouths when we're in our pain body. Don't cook with sharp knives or heat. Just don't cook at all, right? There are so many moments, moment to moment to moment, and mindfulness already says this. But moment to moment to moment, am I in love or am I in fear? Is this a spiritual bypass? I want to tell you it's not. Because does a person in love purchase an automatic weapon and plan to shoot a group of people because of the color of their skin? Does a person in love try to create blockages to the freedom to choose? Does a person in love try to change the percentages of different types and shades of us in the overall population for some crazy reason? I know that's a judgment. I don't think so. Now, a person who's lost and doesn't even know that they're operating from fear will do all of those things. What I want to know is not just, can we always choose love and go about our business and ignore that? We are part of a collective. The cycles of relationship between each and every one of us and the ones we can't even see, the collective. Every time one of us grows willingly and hatches from the constraints of their old ways of living, they are lifted up, and so are all of the rest of us. Every time we realize the perfection of the world, and then we let ourselves grow together and hatch out of the constraints of our old ways of living, the world is a little better. We do have work to do, but we can't do it if we're full of judgment and we're upset. If you really want to make a difference, ask the question, who, me? Listen for the answer and change what you're putting into circulation. And then ask this question also as often as necessary. Am I in love in this moment, or am I in fear? And this isn't just about me feeling good today. This isn't just about me resolving my anxiety, okay, which I'm really grateful to have done, by the way. It restores me to my usefulness. There are things to do out there. There are people to talk to. Then walk, then stand, then sit, then pick up the phone, then give a speech, then write a letter, then cast a vote, then run for office, then do what is yours to do. If we do it unknowingly out of fear, we are contributing to violence, and we are contributing to harm. If we can catch ourselves willingly and not do that, and do everything that we see that is in front of us with love, we really can make a difference. And we can reveal that perfect world that's already there by revealing the perfect us we're just getting to know. So here's my call to action. It's only 3 words. Are you ready? Let's get cracking. And so it is.